The origin of the Joyboy, the very first pirate, the one who tried to save the world. This is the story of the Joyboy as told by Vegapunk from chapter 1115. And this picks up right at the end of the last chapter where it says the Joyboy was the very first pirate. Now you may be wondering how he came to be known as a pirate. Do bear in mind, I only have access to a handful of poneglyphs, so this is everything that Vegapunk knows. But their combined narrative clearly chronicles an unbelievable history about a great war in the distant past. During that period, Joyboy faced an enemy, the organization now known as the World Government. Back then, they were merely the Allied Powers, a temporary coalition consisting of 20 separate kingdoms. It can be assumed that an alliance was the only feasible way to oppose the formidable faction to which Joyboy belonged. I'm afraid that the cause of the conflict still eludes me, so I don't presume to judge the morality of the combatants. I can however say that this war was a clash of two opposing ideologies. I mentioned earlier the Joyboy was born into a fantastical civilization, one so advanced that it's hard to believe it existed over 900 years ago. The weapons that existed during this century-long struggle are far beyond our modern science. Such technology is baffling even to a genius such as myself, and therein lies our problem. The void century ended with Joyboy's defeat. But the aftermath had grander consequences. The wake of that ancient conflict scarred the world, and those scars never healed. We all know travel between islands can be difficult. The seas one must traverse are so vast. Most people are content to live and die at their place of birth, never experiencing any culture other than their own. That is common knowledge to us now, but it wasn't like that 1,000 years ago. A cataclysmic ecological disaster occurred during the Void Century, and the ancient world was swallowed by the ocean. We are now living atop of the remains, continental fragments of the land masses that once were. The world of a millennia ago sleeps unseen at the bottom of the ocean. I know it's hard to believe in my word alone, but there really were multiple vast continents back then. This change in the world helps explain how a century of history could be censored, a feat that seems highly impossible, but it makes sense when you consider the undeniable conclusion all the data points to. Within a mere century, the average sea level rose by a staggering 200 meters. That begs the question, how and why did a flood occur? Naturally, your first inclination might be to assume it was some kind of natural disaster. However, I can say for certain that it was no such thing. It was a man-made calamity. If this catastrophe was brought about by natural means, there would be records denoting early warning signs several centuries earlier. It was a severe world-altering event after all, but all my research into meteorology, geology, ecology, and atmospheric science confirmed that there was no such natural buildup. It is impossible for such a drastic change to happen by its own within the span of a mere 100 years, meaning the cause lies elsewhere. My suspicions were confirmed a few days ago when I analyzed the world's current sea levels. This will be hard to accept, but that disaster 800 years ago was caused by ancient weapons technology capable of sinking the world, and that very same firepower evidently still exists, just waiting to be used again. In other words, that great war which ravaged the world during the Void Century is still ongoing. As we see the eyes of Emo, while Vegapunk reveals the history of the Joyboy, the history of the Void Century. This wasn't the only thing that was revealed in this chapter. We see the power of the elders, where one of them slashes the punk records just like that. We see Zoro, Jinbei, we see Bonnie. We see in the other world, in Wano and the other parts of the world, we see how they're all reacting to Vegapunk and what he's saying. But this chapter focused more on the history. Like Vegapunk talked a lot about what happened, and it makes sense. The Joyboy lost against 20 kingdoms, but why were they fighting him? What was the reason? Were they afraid of him? But he was the warrior of liberation, the sun god, the one who brought freedom. Why were they afraid of him? Why did they challenge him? Why did the Joyboy lose? But that power that the Joyboy has is in Luffy now. He had the power to oppose 20 kingdoms, to oppose the world by his own, to stand firmly to what he believes in. And he stood and he fought, but he wasn't lost, even though he lost at that point, but his memory lived on. This is also who Luffy is now, the Joyboy, the sun god. But the story that Vegapunk knows isn't just this, still ongoing. The Joyboy is much more. He is more than that. But this was the origin of him. What happened to him? This was the origin of the Joyboy and chapter 1115 of the One Piece manga. Tell me, what do you all think about this story? What do you all think about the Joyboy and everything that we got to know about him now? I'm interested in hearing your thoughts. Leave a like and subscribe. It will help me out a lot, and I will see you on the next one. Bye bye, Joyboy.